over 20 of the 27 EU countries currently have some kind of residence or citizenship by investment option. Most of the countries, they offer different types of residences, whereas three in particular offer options that would lead to citizenship with an expedited way. So these are Cyprus, Malta, and Bulgaria. And Mr. Ajmera is an expert in the field. So if you have any questions or if you're interested in seeing how you can start your new life in Europe, you can turn to him. So Europe is quite different from, let's say, more established citizenship markets like Canada and the United States, mainly because, for example, there isn't a huge Indian diaspora in Europe as there is in Canada or in the States. This is especially valid for Bulgaria because most of you most likely don't even know much about the country. Mr. Ajmera, have you ever been to Bulgaria before?
No, I haven't been to.
Yeah, so generally, just to give you an overview of the country, it is an Eastern European country. It is bordering Turkey and Greece, and it has a layout on the Black Sea. It is a EU member country since 2007. And for people who are not very familiar within the European Union, the fact that you are a citizen of one of the countries within the European Union, this essentially gives you the rights of living, studying, and working in any other European Union country. So this is like a kind of universal citizenship. So for Bulgaria, you would need to know it's a very, very small country compared to the Indian standards. Like the whole country is less than 7 million people. So this is smaller than most, like some of the bigger cities in India. And the capital itself is Sofia. Here you can see a photo of actually my hometown, and this is Plovdiv. It's a very laid-back country, a little bit Mediterranean. So even if you're interested in going to Europe on vacation, Bulgaria might be a good option for you. We speak Bulgarian in Bulgaria, as this is the official language of the country, but a lot of the people, especially the younger generation, speak English and other languages. Isn't that the case like this, Nevi?
Yes, that's true. Many actually in the capital, we have a lot of foreigners and they have a pretty tight community. They do, because one of our colleagues is, for example, from Argentina, and they do have gatherings where they exchange information about their life together in Sofia. And I think generally Sofia and Plovdiv, which are two of the biggest cities, Sofia being the biggest, and Varna and Burgas, which are located at the seaside, they are very, very welcoming to foreigners. And generally what we've heard from people who are visiting us or Bulgaria and from clients as a whole is that they have been very impressed with the whole attitude of Bulgarians towards them. So we do hope that if you have a chance to come and visit us, that you will have the similar experience and that you will be able to enjoy the attractions that are available here. One thing that we need to mention is that our currency is Bulgarian lev and it is pegged to the euro.
Yes. So generally, to add to Nevena, when you're investing in Bulgaria, your funds are essentially safe because even though you would be investing in an unknown currency for you, for most of the people in India, this currency is pegged and the exchange rate with one of the best traded currency, the euro, is fixed. So you have like minimum financial risks in your investment profiles. As we pointed out, Bulgaria has like very rich history, and it is one of the oldest countries in Europe. In general, it is very tolerant country, mainly because of its location. It's actually on the precipice between Europe and Asia, and it has been the place where a lot of people have gone through, and especially people coming from Asia into Europe and vice versa. So to give you a little bit of a idea of what Bulgaria can offer you, we would need to look a little bit deeper into the economic situation. Bulgaria, before the coronavirus, was one of the fastest growing EU economies. It was in the top 5 of the fastest growing economies within the European Union, even though it was not part of the Eurozone. So Bulgaria is a member of the EU. It is also a member of NATO and the World Trade Organization. So you have these kind of safety nets for future citizens to know that Bulgaria gives them the political stability and the economic stability to set up their own business. So for people who are interested in setting up a business, because I know that Indians are very entrepreneurial, it is good to point out that Bulgaria might be a very good option to start a business because of the one of the best tax regimes within the European Union. So you would have to consider that we have very low corporate tax. So this is just 10%, and this is one of the lowest corporate taxes within the European Union. This is even lower than some of the island countries where you have taxes of over 12.5%. Personal income tax is also 10%. And in addition, you have like no inheritance tax for inheritance from direct heirs, or considering if you have like you're obtaining dividends from somewhere, the tax on dividends is just 5%. So this makes it a very good option for the more active investors who are looking into somewhere to expand. And Nevena, further down in our presentation, would give you an overview how you can structure setting up a company that would allow you to obtain residency in Bulgaria and citizenship for people who are looking into the so-called more active styles of investment. So in general, because Bulgaria is part of the European Union, it is also part of the single market, meaning that if you set up a company in Bulgaria, you would be able to trade anywhere within the European Union. So this is a great benefit for more entrepreneurial people, people who are interested in certain sectors. For example, IT is a sector that is developing very rapidly in Bulgaria. I know that previously India was a center for outsourcing and IT services. This can be expanded into Bulgaria so that it would give people faster access to the European market as well. So certainly people who are interested in this, they might look into more detail into Bulgaria. Why Bulgaria would be of interest to people looking for a second citizenship? So essentially, this can be categorized by several factors. When you obtain a second citizenship, you are granted access to different countries. Like being part, as I mentioned, being part of the European Union would allow Bulgarian citizens to be treated as citizens of other European Union countries. And what does this mean for you in particular? This means that, for example, me as Bulgarian, if I want to go and study in Germany, I wouldn't be subject to paying foreign international student fees. I would be subject to paying what the local Germans are paying. This means immediately access to the educational market of the entire European Union. So this opens the doors to a lot of people. It opens the door for continuing the education of your children. Whereas, for example, if you as an international student fees can go exuberantly high, and these are essentially lost fees if you use them, if you use the funds to make this investment, obtain Bulgarian citizenship, essentially your education would be for free. Isn't that the case, Nevi?
Yes, yes, certainly that is the case. And actually, specifically for Bulgaria, it is worth mentioning that the medical profession has been, we have a great medical facilities and universities here in Bulgaria, which allow for people who, after they graduate high school, they can continue their education here. And we actually have a lot of people coming here in Bulgaria from neighboring countries because, as Ivan mentioned, fees can be very, very high, and in Bulgaria they are very affordable, and there are courses that are entirely set in English, so it is absolutely fine for you to come and study here medicine, even if you cannot actually speak Bulgarian, which I think is a great advantage and is something that people have been exploring for many years. So if this is something that you may be interested, please feel free to also consider it as part of your investment plans or the investment or the future of your children.
As Nevena mentioned, yes, medical universities are quite popular. In addition, also our IT sector is very well developed, and education-wise, mathematics, and especially linguistics as well. I am a graduate of also Sofia and Plovdiv universities, so I'm very familiar with the quality that the Bulgarian education can offer you. In addition, like if you're a Bulgarian citizen, you would have access to traveling to over 170 countries without the need for applying for a visa in advance. Usually most of these countries you can enter with just your passport. With other countries you would need to just simply fill an online form, or you would be granted visa on arrival, but this wouldn't require you to go through a very stringent process of obtaining a visa just to travel to somewhere. So for people who are more international, more open to doing business around the world, that might be a very good option overall in the future. In addition, just to give you a little bit more information about Bulgaria, just to immerse you in the culture, what you're seeing here is one of the traditional Bulgarian meals. This is tripe soup. So this is a very good hearty meal for winter. And this certainly helps for people who have some kind of hangover. So if you are a food connoisseur, you would be able to find very, very interesting options in Bulgaria. As we discussed with Mr. Ajmera, pollution is also a very big concern, especially for people in the developing countries such as India and China. And Bulgaria is quite unique because Bulgaria has amazing nature. So what's unique about the Balkans and where Bulgaria is located is the fact that it has mountains, it has seaside, and like for people who are also interested in this kind of nature tourism, this is also a very good option to start exploring Europe a little bit further. As I mentioned, being a European Union citizen would immediately give you access to the educational market within Europe, and potentially in the future to the UK market as well. Even though the UK has left the European Union, I believe that in the future, and there would be some kind of agreement between the European Union and the UK that would allow students to continue to have continued access to UK universities, which are one of the best in the world. And of course, being part of a union would give you other advantages as well. So it's very unique that the people who are European Union citizens, they can actually ask for consular help from any embassy of any EU country. So essentially, even if you're a Bulgarian citizen, if you go somewhere where there is no Bulgarian consulate or embassy, you can turn to any other European Union country embassy and you would be entitled to help. So being part of a larger union would give you added benefits as well. So I would go a little bit more into detail about the residency and citizenship options that we have before you, and how you can structure your investment plan so that they would lead to residency and citizenship. We are going to divide them into three main categories. One is passive investment, which just requires a certain investment to be made, and it wouldn't require additional steps from the investors that leads to residency and citizenship. The other category that we would discuss is the so-called active investments, where you would set up a company, set up a business, hire people, that leads to citizenship and residency and citizenship. And the last category that we would consider is the category that leads only to residence. This is for people who actually want to physically move to Bulgaria, because I know different people have different requirements, different needs. So you have different routes that ultimately would meet your needs and requirements. So to start, the first option is the so-called passive investment strategies. And this is being regulated by the two acts. One is the Foreigners in the Republic of Bulgaria Act, and then the Bulgarian Citizenship Act. And this would allow people who have made, who are non-EU citizens, who are over 18 years old and have no criminal record, to apply for permanent residence and subsequently citizenship. Of course, because within the European Union, you have very stringent anti-money laundering regulations, you would need to have a very clear source of funds, but Ajmera Law Group, together with us, will be able to advise you how to procure the necessary documents to evidence your funds. But essentially, if you are a business owner or you're employed, you wouldn't have any concerns about proving the funds for the investment. So how is the process started? The process is started by making a single investment of 1 million Bulgarian lev. This is the Bulgarian currency, as we mentioned earlier, which is approximately equal to 513,000 euros. We'll be speaking in euros because the euro is the national currency, is the international currency of the European Union. And if you want to switch it off to Indian rupees, you can ask Mr. Ajmera for presentation materials in Indian rupees. So what you can invest in? You can invest in several different classes. The most popular class is government bonds. These are sovereign bonds issued by the Bulgarian government. Another passive type of investment is an investment in stocks. This is a little bit more risky because you would need to be familiar with the Bulgarian stock exchange and the stock market in Bulgaria. And the third option would be an investment in Bulgarian intellectual property. So this is an option for more sophisticated investors who are looking at acquiring certain patents or acquiring trademarks that would require additional valuation. So this is a little bit more complicated as opposed to the direct investment in government bonds. Over 90% of all of the people who have started the process have chosen government bonds. And one of the unique things about the Bulgarian program is the fact that these type of Bulgarian government bonds can be purchased outside of Bulgaria. So what does this mean? This means that applicants do not need to open a special account in Bulgaria. They don't need to move money from India to Bulgaria to purchase the bonds, but essentially they can purchase the bonds directly in India. As far as I'm aware, Mr. Ajmera has contacts within India. Is that the case where you can assist potential clients with purchasing the bonds in India, Mr. Ajmera?
Yes, basically, as you know, that these bonds are available in the different stock markets in the different places. So there are banks available in India who are in a position to, because as these are a sovereign bond or a government bond, the bank based in India will assist you to open an account outside India. And once you open your account and you transfer the money, this is your own account, and through that account, you can basically purchase the government bonds of the Bulgarian government. Once you purchase this government bond, you can basically present it to the government with your full applications for the immigration, which our law firm, Ajmera Law Group and New Balkan Law Firm will assist to make an application that you have made this investment into the government approved bond, and that will allow you to obtain a residency. And if you are making a higher investment into the second year, and it will allow you to obtain the citizenship.
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much. So as Mr. Ajmera mentioned, this is a huge advantage over other programs because this is going to lower the risk profile of the investment. When you make an investment in government bonds, essentially, this is backed by the national government. So even though you wouldn't be expecting to make a lot of money, you also wouldn't be expected to incur any losses. So this is a very suitable option for the more risk-averse investors, for people who are more conservative in their investment approach. So certainly this is something that can be looked into more detail. As Mr. Ajmera mentioned, there are two tracks that would allow you to obtain citizenship under this route. The first option is going to take a little bit longer, and this essentially goes something like this. You make a single investment of €500,000, you obtain permanent residence, and you wait for 5 years. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to travel to Bulgaria to live there at any point. You don't need to learn Bulgarian. You don't need to visit the country like every couple of years or something like this. The only requirement for you is to maintain the investment. So the investment stays with your account in India or outside of India, and essentially after 5 years you can file your application for citizenship, and you would become a Bulgarian citizen. For people who wish to expedite the process, the Bulgarian legislation allows for a so-called fast-track option. The fast-track option works like this. A person invests $500,000 at the beginning, they obtain permanent residence, and after 1 year of holding permanent residence, they double the investment. Essentially, they make another investment of $500,000, and they are immediately eligible to apply for citizenship. So this shortens the process of obtaining Bulgarian citizenship significantly, and this works for people who are a little bit more of a in a rush to secure a second passport, but it also requires a higher investment threshold. So there are pros and cons to each of the two options, and they need to be considered very carefully. So how does the process essentially works? The process is very, very simple, and it takes just 4 steps. The first step is you making the investment. On the basis of this investment, Ajmera Law Group, together with us, will be able to assist you to prepare your application and obtain a so-called investment certificate. With this investment certificate, this would be the grounds for your long-term visa D, which would allow you to enter Bulgaria and apply for permanent residence status. So you invest, you get your visa, and then you get your PR. Essentially, the whole process can take somewhere between 3 to 6 months to obtaining your permanent residence status. And even in the time of Corona, when people are a little bit afraid of flying and traveling, this shouldn't be of concern. There are Bulgarian consulate missions in India, so you can make your applications within India. And when traveling to Bulgaria, you would be expected to spend only 1 day there to submit the application for your permanent residence. So your risks would be minimal. And after you get your permanent residence status, you have the options of the fast track, where you can apply for citizenship in 1 year, or just wait the full 5 years and then get your passport. How does this work as a timeline? We already explained, but I just want to point out certain things that applicants need to take into consideration. Purely on the investment side, opening a new account and executing the necessary investment is going to take approximately 1 month. Your visa application also takes between 1 month and 2 months, and your permanent residence application also takes between 1 and 2 months. So essentially, how fast the application can be processed would depend on many factors. Ajmera Law Group and the New Balkans Office are here to make sure that the application goes as fast as possible, so that you don't have to waste time, you don't have to make additional trips anywhere, just to make sure that the process is as streamlined as possible. The other major period that you would need to take into account is your the review process for your citizenship application. Essentially, once you submit your citizenship application, the Ministry of Justice, together with other agencies and ministries in Bulgaria, form a so-called Citizenship Council, which has 6 months to review your case under this route. And after approval, the application is sent to the Vice President's office, which can make additional checks. And after that, you're granted your citizenship certificate. There is no difference between timelines for Indian clients or Russian clients or Chinese clients. This is one process. We actually have clients from India and Indians, like citizens of Indian origin, and we have found out that their applications are processed at the same speed as everybody else. So what makes this kind of route unique, as we mentioned several times, is the fact that it is very low risk financially, meaning if you have the necessary funds, if you just put them in savings instruments such as government bonds, essentially after the whole process is over, you would be able to sell the bonds. meaning that you would be getting the money back. So in the end, you have your funds and you have a EU passport that would allow you and your family and your children to live and study in Europe and be part of the European way of life. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. Another advantage is the fact that you can use banks or brokerages within India to assist you with the purchase of the bonds, and Mr. Ajmera is going to help you out with that. And the fact that you do not need to reside in Bulgaria or speak Bulgarian is also a very important thing to consider. Bulgaria allows for dual citizenship, even though India does not. So this is something that you would need to consider very carefully whether or not you would be interested in substituting your Indian citizenship for Bulgarian, and what kind of opportunities this would grant you. So this was the so-called passive type of investment, where you just have a certain lump of money, you put it in an investment, in a savings instrument, you leave it there and you start the process. And this is something chosen by people who are just looking for obtaining a second passport as a backup plan, or a process to go at the same time as their other like businesses. So this works for people who are already successful in their country of origin. They have like successful businesses there, and they're just looking to either diversify their investment portfolio and to make sure that they're protected against future upheaval, or essentially for people who don't want to be hands-on. For people who are actually more entrepreneurial, and for people who want to set up a business of their own and they're interested in exploring options, Bulgaria also has several routes that would allow them to obtain residency and citizenship by actually setting up a business. So I would like to give the word to Nevena, and she would be able to detail the so-called limited liability company incorporation routes and how they can be structured so that the Indian citizens can benefit from them.
Thank you, Ivan. Yes, I will be talking about and presenting the options that, as Ivan mentioned, include a more active behavior at the end of the investor, because while the government bonds allow you to just make the investment, keep the investment at your bank account and just monitor it from time to time by liaising with your relationship manager, by checking up on it, or just not do anything particular at all. The other options that we will present will include a more active behavior. And for example, you would need to have a plan, you would need to be aware of what you are investing and how you would like it to develop it, how you would like to gain more profit out of it, and steps like this. The other option, while it is more, the other options, so-called passive ones, they are more appropriate for people, as Ivan mentioned, for people who are already successful in their countries, or for people who would just be investing in financial instruments, for example. While these ones, they require certain knowledge, business knowledge, so that ultimately the investment that you will be making will not be at a loss. And let's start with the first option, which is incorporating a limited liability company in Bulgaria of 3 million euro. As you can see, the amount is considerably higher as opposed to the other option. It is because the company is not traded on the Sofia exchange, and it's not something that, as you would be aware, listed companies, they do have a higher threshold of transparency. They need to make available to the general public certain reports, financial situation. They would need to be more aware of their financial status, and they need to just update information on a regular basis and be in constant compliance with certain regulatory do, and have a structure that you prefer, and invest however you would like to in this scenario. It again leads to permanent residency. This one has no requirements for you to create a job as jobs for Bulgarian citizens, as you would see that certain other options do have this as a requirement. That is why we have the higher threshold of the capital, just to mitigate this and to balance sort the expenses that an investor or a businessman needs to have in mind at the beginning of the project. For this type of investment, the investor can apply for citizenship after 5 years. So you would see that there is no fast track, as was the case with the other options. And again, similar to the other government bond options, there is no physical residency or language requirements, and you are not required to renounce your current citizenship. It is worth mentioning that there is no fast track, once again, because it is expected for you to take some time to develop your business, to potentially create the structure that you would like. And that's why it is expected that you would be spending more time in Bulgaria, and that's why you are not in a particular hurry. This is just considered sometimes an advantage to a project that you're already contemplating on developing here in Bulgaria. So it is essentially viewed as something extra to investors with considerable plans for Bulgarian economy. The next option is you would see the capital contribution is much lower, and it's 250,000 euro. And the exact requirements are that the person would need to make a contribution to the capital, and as a consequence of this contribution, the company needs to acquire tangible and intangible assets in that amount. So the greatest advantage of this option is that you can structure it either way. You can invest primarily in tangible assets or otherwise. So you can purchase equipment, you can purchase real estate, you can purchase factories, whatever you need to in order to set up and then continue to develop your business. So this is one of the advantages that this option presents. Another requirement is that the company needs to create 10 jobs for Bulgarian people. So you need to have in mind, you can structure it for business where you will be, for example, in the business of services, or in the business where you would need to actually hire citizens in order to develop it, or in order to achieve certain goals that are set. So this is for business where you would actually need to hire people, and that's why the threshold is much lower, as you would see, compared to the previous option. It is among the lowest thresholds in Europe as a whole that lead to, again, permanent residency, not to temporary, for example. And the creating of jobs is not a higher amount, it is just 10 jobs. So if you have a big venture planned for you in the future, this may, for your company or for your business, this may be something that is worth considering and exploring, especially since Bulgaria is part of the EU, which means that part of the single market, and you will be able to exploit that and use that to your advantage, and just expand within the whole of EU. The last and probably the least attractive option of this is, because it does not technically lead to permanent residence, is incorporating a limited liability company in Bulgaria. Because so this leads to prolonged residence, and the prolonged residence is something that is renewable each year. So as long as you continue to meet the requirements, so as long as you continue to have 10 people employed at your country, you will be able to renew this residence permit each year. After 5 years, and provided that you have been absent from the country within 30 months, you will be able to transform this residence permit into a permanent residency. Then after holding permanent residence for 5 years, the applicant can apply for citizenship. But here is the catch, that in this case, first you are required to actually reside in Bulgaria. You would be required to speak the language, and unless there are certain facilitating factors, you would likely be required to renounce your current citizenship. This option is at the disposal of people who would like to relocate to Bulgaria and would rather like to abandon their previous life or old life elsewhere, that they have a plan on how to start a business there. And we will actually get a bit later on the facts how you will be able to explore the possibility of making your business in Bulgaria, and how to explore the market and whether it is suitable for your needs just a bit later, because there is another option for residency, which is entirely related to marketing, initial review, initial research purposes, where the person would need to come to the country, live in Bulgaria, and see what the country can provide for their business, and how the country or the people here react to the services that are being presented or to the goods that are being imported. So among the three options, as you can see, each of them have pros and cons. So each of them may serve a certain need that you have, and they can potentially be structured based on your needs, which I think provides quite the flexible structure for each business venture that you may have.
So just to add to Nevi's point, this is something quite unique, because essentially if you want to be moving to Bulgaria and you would have actual business plans to run a small type of business, because if you think about it, 10 employees is not a big size business, this would allow you to maintain an investment, actively be part of this investment, and obtain Bulgarian and subsequently European citizenship. What's unique about the option for the investment in just a Bulgarian company, the one that is 3 million euros, yes, the threshold is significantly higher, but what's unique about this is the fact that you can structure it in such a way that with this capital, you can use it even outside of Bulgaria. So essentially, you would have like a company that is set up in Bulgaria. The capital of the company is going to be 3 million euros. And how you would be utilizing this capital would be based on the decisions of the company. And this can be used like in multiple ways. This can be either to purchase like bigger properties in Bulgaria. This can be used for higher ventures, like depending on the type of the company that you would be setting up. And essentially this would give you a lot of options and flexibility in setting up the business.
Also, it is worth mentioning that Bulgaria is very welcoming in terms of the business landscape. We have wages here that are very low compared to the rest of the world, and actually maybe the rest of Europe. And one would need to consider that, especially if you try to position your warehouse or business or the main headquarters of the company, not in particularly in Sofia, but outside of Sofia, you are looking at very, very low operational costs. So this is something that has been attracting companies, and actually many companies, especially these who are in outsourcing, in the outsourcing business, they choose office buildings that are maybe within Sofia, but on the outskirts, or essentially office buildings that can minimize their funds for example, hiring or purchasing the building. So you can balance your expenses a lot should you consider these options. So maybe we can continue, yes, with the residency options. So it is worth mentioning for people who, these options that we are considering now and reviewing, these are targeted to people who actually wish to reside in Bulgaria and would actually wish to move here within a short period of time. One of these options is the purchase of real estate, which can be done by a non-Bulgarian national who would like to invest approximately 300,000 euro into real estate. This again doesn't lead to permanent, but to prolonged residency and can be renewed each year, provided that the investment is maintained. Bulgarian market has been very sustainable, even though it was expected to for prices to drop. It has been actually otherwise. In Sofia, we have been observing a steady increase. Actually, before it was quite rapid, but now due to the COVID-19 situation, it has been more slow, but still still increasing the value of the property. That's why you shouldn't, I mean, investors should take this into consideration when making plans and when considering this as an option. I believe that the Bulgarian market is generally very stable in terms of property. Ivan, what do you think?
Yeah, yes, as you pointed out, if you're looking for purchasing a property, yes, you can go to the more developed markets like the UK or Canada or the States, but the prices there, especially in bigger urban centers, are significant. Whereas Bulgaria is, because it's a little bit unknown, prices are much lower, and you can still have like very good value for money. For example, the average price per square meter in Sofia is approximately 1,200 euros per square meter. So you would see that it is significantly cheaper than, let's say, London, which is famous for its exuberant prices of real estate. So this can also be an option for people who are interested in investing in real estate, because we know that some people are more familiar with financial instruments. They make their investments there. We know that some people prefer to invest in more tangible things like real estate, and Bulgaria offers this kind of position. We have had a lot of clients who actually invested in properties around the seaside. Mm-hmm. So they have used these properties as either their summer villas, or these properties can be converted to be used as Airbnbs, hotels, and similar. I think that we have like a client from the former Soviet Union. They have property on the seaside, right?
Yes. Yes, that's true. And actually many clients, because we've had a lot of inquiries throughout the years, many of them have been targeted to this specific question, whether people can purchase property and by way of purchasing it become residents. Yes, they can, but in this case, as we've mentioned, it leads to prolonged residency. This kind of option allows for two types of structure. The investor can either purchase the property in his or her name, or they can set up a company and purchase the relevant property in the name of the company. This may be related to the type of the company, type of the property, whether it is just flats, whether it is land or any other type of specific, because Bulgarian lands, it depends on its category, it depends on the way it is transferred and how it can be held. So this is something that would be considered and discussed with the clients prior to them making any arrangements. In this option, it is worth mentioning that financing is also available, but there are certain restrictions. There is also the note that family members are also able to benefit from this option, as well as from any other option that we just discuss, that there can be a reunification with family members, spouses, and children under the age of 18. So they can benefit from this investment as well. So this is the option that I mentioned earlier, that is considered the exploratory option, because allows for businesses to appoint a trade representative here in Bulgaria and have him or her explore the market, make evaluations, make research, and see how the potential business may be developed here in Bulgaria and what kind of impact it will have, what kind of operational expenses one should expect, and other certainly logistical points that one should take into consideration when setting up a business anywhere in the world. This option is open to companies who have been active and tax compliant, which means that they have paid all of their taxes and that there aren't any taxes that are left to be paid, or any tax implications that may impair one's compliance with tax obligations. And the company incorporated abroad can set up a trade representation office here in Bulgaria and appoint a person, or up to 3 people actually, appoint them and make them trade representatives here in Bulgaria, so that they can then obtain a temporary residence here. What happens is that the company provides a certain number of documents, an incorporation and registration documents from local registries. For example, if it is an Indian company, there should be documents from the Indian company registry showing who the owner is, who the director is, and certain other documents. Then the trade representative office is registered. The person is appointed. We will be able to assist with a few documents and certificates that need to be collected from local authorities, and the person can then begin and apply for a visa type D. Once the visa type D has been obtained, the trade representative can come to Bulgaria and apply for their residence permit. After that, each year, provided that the company continues to be active and tax compliant, because Bulgarian authorities would require such kind of documentation and documentary evidence in support of these claims, the trade representative can continue to renew their residence permit yearly. This again, after 5 years, can lead to permanent residence, and then the applicant can apply for citizenship.
So thank you very much for the kind explanation of this option for the trade representative office. This is quite unique because this would allow for people to actually come to Bulgaria, settle down in the long term and in the short term, and see what options they would be granted to develop a business. So essentially, it might be a good option to start with something like this and then try to switch to one of the other options. And together with Ajmera Law Group, we are going to advise you exactly how to structure everything so that it is so that your requirements, legal requirements, are met. So with this option, it has to be noted that you wouldn't be granted the right to work in Bulgaria. So when you have permanent residence, generally permanent residence would allow you to be employed in Bulgaria. However, when you are sent to Bulgaria as a trade representative, you are considered to already be employed by the company who is sending you to do the research on their behalf. So you wouldn't be granted the rights to work in Bulgaria, so this might not be a suitable option for people who just want to come to Bulgaria and work for somebody else. They would still need to have certain available funds at their disposal, and certainly this can be switched to another option, and together with Ajmera Law Group, we are going to advise how to do this as per the legal requirements.
Yes, Ivan, you're quite right. I just wanted to add that indeed it's different from being able to actually work here in Bulgaria and being employed to that effect, because we do receive a lot of inquiries in order to obtain a work permit in Bulgaria, which gives you the legal right to work for somebody here. There is a special permit that is to be obtained, but it needs to be obtained through the employer. So the employer needs to make a submission with the local authorities and request that you are granted a work permit for a specific position. In the general case, the employer will need to justify why they would like to hire you specifically, what kind of advantages, what kind of knowledge or skills you can contribute to their business, so that the authorities, local authorities, could better understand why the local employer wants to hire you.
Yes. So generally, because we are, you have seen a lot of information, like I would wish to systemize what we were discussing so far. So you have a number of routes that would allow you access to Bulgaria and the European Union. And the very, very first question is how much funds you have at your disposal, how much time and effort you are willing to spend on this process, and what your ultimate goals are. So once you have more clarity about this process, these three questions in general, you can focus on which of the options would be best suited in your case. You can approach Mr. Ajmera with any questions. They would be able to let you know in your personal case which is the best option for you. In general, our experience has been that the most straightforward way where you make the investment in government bonds is the one preferred by most clients. But it would depend certainly on what your ultimate goals are and what available funds you have at your disposal. So just to let you know a little bit about us, we have been working together with the Ajmera Law Group for the past year and a half. We've been to India several times, and we have a very good working relationship with Mr. Ajmera. If you approach them and if you're interested in Bulgaria or Bulgarian legislation in any way, we would be happy to work together with you. You have to have in mind that we are a full service law firm, and we don't only deal with migration, we can assist with other services within Bulgaria. For example, procuring of documents, and other things. And Mr. Ajmera can explain this a little bit more. As they kindly introduced us in the beginning, I speak Chinese, Nevena speaks English and Russian. We are a very international law firm, and I believe that we can work very well together. So I would like to give the word to Mr. Ajmera and thank him so much for giving us the opportunity to speak with you and to give you a little bit more information about Bulgaria and the options that the country can offer Indian citizens.